So, big warm welcome to all of you who have tuned in from around the world. We're really happy to have you here. Join us for the premiere show of AWA Agora. AWA Agora is an online forum for unscripted discussions. There's no teleprompter, there's nobody holding a card saying, say this. We are inviting friends and people we respect, people we have worked with, to come to our studio or our home for a conversation, for a discussion. But why are we doing this? We are doing this to question the present so that we can plan better for the future, to question our zeitgeist and to explore new paradigms. Some of us will hopefully explore new paradigms based on the discussions that we have. And the byline for AWA Agora is facilitating thought leadership. That's really our driver, that we're inviting you home or to our studio in these COVID times to have a conversation about what we feel could actually impact the future, right? Those of you who wanted to attend but could not, the recording would be available on YouTube on our Contextualizing Light channel. That's the AWA channel on YouTube, where these videos post-production will be available with visuals. I do want to thank Justin Mensch from AWA for producing this show so competently. I mean, we are new to this, really enjoying the process and looking forward to some great discussions, right? And many thanks to the team at AWA as well. So our first guest today is Dr. Mark Ray. Mark is someone I've known for almost 26 years now. And he is a pioneer in many ways. He's a visionary vision scientist, a little play on words. We feel that he has impacted a whole generation of lighting professionals, whether they ended up being designers or they went to the industry or started doing human factors, looking at circadian rhythms. The kind of work that Mark has done has been tremendous in over the last 30 plus years. I'm very happy to welcome him. He's a fantastic person. I have known him well, and I enjoy our interactions very much. We meet once a year for lunch, and been doing that for the last 20 years. And please join me in welcoming Dr. Mark Ray. Mark, welcome. Happy to have you here, and love to start the discussion with iconoclasm and lighting. And the first question, polled from many audience members as well, previous to the show, what do you think is the role of iconoclasts in general, and specifically in the design industry, lighting design industry and other design industries? So over to you, Mark.
Abhay, thank you. I'm extremely flattered. As I recall, I think I gave you a B in my class, so you're still talking to me. So I appreciate that. I think that you and I, as you mentioned, meet annually to have a lunch, and we've talked about iconoclasm. And I think that from one perspective, well, first of all, we should define iconoclasm, which means that you attack the sacred icons, whatever that may be. I think you and I share the view that we question perhaps conventional wisdom, but I wouldn't call myself an iconoclast per se. And what's interesting is that someone who might call you or me an iconoclast, maybe the next generation will call you an icon itself, Abhay, after you've made a change in the lighting design profession. So I think it's a temporary title assigned from one group to another, but I think you and I absolutely share the thrill and the enjoyment of just asking the basic questions. Why are we doing it this way? So I think that's something we share together, and that's been a point of conversation for us for many years.
So, but do you feel that an iconoclast is a crazy maverick, or do you think they have a positive role to play in our zeitgeist? You know, I mean, do we just discard them as people who are looking for attention because they just want to be contrarians for the sake of being a contrarian, or do you think there's a place for them in the world that we live in?
Well, I think if you do it, if you challenge without sincerity, you're just philandering. And I think that maybe is the difference between what we call a pioneer versus someone who just is contrary. But I do think that wherever it comes from, conventional wisdom should always be questioned. So again, iconoclast is kind of a pejorative term, but again, I don't think that's the essence of what you and I are talking about. Mm-hmm. It's really bringing to consciousness, why are we setting 300 lux on a horizontal surface, and why does everybody do that? Those are the questions that, you know, I think interest you and me, and I think anybody should be able to have that. What is remarkable, and I think the reason why you wanted to have this as a kickoff, is it doesn't seem like anybody does ask that question. They tend to defer to tradition or what they consider to be a higher authority, and I don't think that's ever stood in our way. Has it, Abhay?
I totally agree with you. I think I believe one of the failures within the evolving milieu of lighting design is that we become subservient to codes and standards, thereby abandoning independent thinking and analysis. You know, then it becomes kind of the cushion that you always lean on, not necessarily for the betterment of the project, because you are now in a dogma that you don't question. So I feel that the systems and the standards have a definite place in bettering society, but within, like everything in life, it has to be within a certain amplitude. You know, if it goes too much, then I call it dogmatic lighting approach, you know. And what I also find very interesting, and that's why I wanted to have this discussion with you, is that the dialogue that we would like to have about questioning the basic tenets of what's been handed down to us, you know, is vastly missing. We are abandoning all of that towards how small can we make an LED, how energy efficient can we make the driver, compatibility, circadian rhythms, etc. But the big question of the why and where we're going often is not even, you know, doesn't even come to the table. And in that, the question that is related to it is that what are the variables you think, I mean, and you're a vision scientist. I mean, I get that you are not a designer, but you're a person who has worked with many designers. You had people who worked for you who were designers, and you had to interact with many of them. What would you feel is a few things that they could look at, or what they're lacking, you know, to make our industry forward thinking, you know, questioning a zeitgeist and exploring new paradigms?
Well, you said something. I want to go back before I answer that question. And time is money, particularly for a professional in the lighting design community. And it's often easier, rather than to tilt at windmills or whatever the right metaphor is, to just do that, and then within the constraints that you have, be able to exercise your creative view. What I think is so important, Abhay, is creating a forum like this where people are having a good time and they're interested. It doesn't happen on its own. It takes somebody that's going to lead to provide a platform for the discussion, because it doesn't spring whole from every conversation, every job you're doing. So I think what you're doing is terrific. You're raising the question. And there are many questions that we should be asking. But to answer your question, where do this is a personal view, and I don't mean to make this anything other than my own view, is I think that in lighting design, we have to now begin to think about time as a dimension. We tend to all be visual people. And Justin and you and I had a conversation yesterday. He had a really important insight. He said in the theater lighting, a person is in a fixed spot and the lighting has to change with each scene. But we often in architectural lighting rely on a photograph in a magazine to win an award, but we don't think about the dynamic aspects of what goes on in that space or how lighting should change over the course of the day. So again, that's a small, in your larger vision of how we should have a discussion, that's a small point, but it's one that interests me in particular.
The temporal dynamism of looking at light, the movement of light through the course of the day, and how do you actually assimilate that in your lighting designs within architecture. That's really what you're saying, right?
Yeah. And I don't think we talk about it. What's the person experiencing across the day that they're there? Or even when you think about it, as they move from building to building, they are also going through a dynamic change. So maybe as professionals, we shouldn't just talk about, the workplace, but maybe we should be thinking about the home environment too, as a sort of handoff, right? So something that makes sense in that work. I don't have an answer for that. I'm just saying, I think that raising the question, I think that's the purpose of why we're meeting today is to begin a discussion of something like that. And again, I don't want to imply that this is the only thing. It's just one of the things that I'm interested in.
Right. And I think one of the other aspects that we've been discussing over the years is this whole paradigm of, you need more light at night and less light during the day. Of course, you turn it on its head and, you've been quoted and cited as saying that, listen, more light in the morning and less light at night is actually better for your body. And I would love for you to share a little bit about that because that for me is a very interesting paradigm. Is what you're saying is that as lighting designers, your credibility or your credentials are not weighed in terms of how much light and how many light fixtures you provide to a project. It's not like a weighing scale saying that, okay, how good of a lighting designer are you because you put so many light fixtures in a space, therefore you're a better lighting designer. No, what you're saying is that maybe we should turn this on its head and say you don't need as much light at night, because it's better for the body. And I would love for you to, spend a few minutes talking about that, because I'm sure the audience is super interested in the parameters that go into this.
Well, I'll keep my remarks short because I know we're short on time. It is when we started in this whole area of circadian rhythms back in the late 1990s. It was kind of a cute area and it was new and we didn't really know. And I think even 20 years before that, people thought, well, humans have evolved to the point where circadian rhythms aren't that important. That's obviously all changed. But the simple thing is that we are a species designed to have bright days and dark nights. And until electric lighting, that's what for millennia, that's what we were exposed to. But electric lighting has flattened that difference. So what we see, we spend 95% of our time indoors, and the lighting we get often in offices is not much different than what we get at home. So the system needs that contrast between dark and bright on a regular 24-hour period. And I think that daylight's a good thing, but you get in 2 meters from the window, you're not getting a lot of daylight anymore. And I think electric lighting needs to take that, professionals in particular, take that as an opportunity to deliver healthy occupants. We work with General Services Administration, and Mariana Figueroa and I have been working with them for several years. And Kevin Kamsher, who's the lead on the sustainability, changed the vocabulary from healthy buildings to healthy occupants. And I think that mindset is really important to begin to consider as a lighting designer. Now, this can get pretty complicated, or it can be very simple. High light levels during the day, however you want to deliver them, and low light levels at night, like put down your iPads. People sleep better. We've shown this with the military. We've shown this with the State Department time and time again. Sleep better, lower depression, less sleepiness during the day. And personally, I drink less coffee now because I follow that same recipe. So I do. I actually craved coffee less now than I used to before I really sort of listened to my own words.
Well, that's fantastic. Yeah. And we got probably 2 more minutes. And I would like to ask an important question that there are many people from around the world that are going to be seeing this. You, of course, are a well-known authority and personality in the lighting field. For the younger generation, the generation that came in after me, right? Basically, that's been a professional, becoming professionals in the last 10 years. What is that one thing that you would tell them? That, listen, if you want to make a difference or if you want to do something useful, do this. What would that be, Mark?
Continuous reading. We tend to, I mean, we are a social species, and a lot of times the information we get is by conversation. We go to talks and we sit in and we get our credits and so on. But reading, you can pick it up, then the next day you can pick it up, and there's a continuity to that. And if you want to be an expert in something, whatever that is, LED drivers or circadian rhythms, you cannot get that information by listening to experts only. You have to dig into it. And I think we don't cherish enough reading in our community. And I think we're a visual community too, right? As I mentioned before, but I think reading is so important because it gives you a chance to digest and then you can have, I believe, a more meaningful conversation. But I find, I mean, even among the experts, they're clearly not reading. It's remarkable to me. So reading is what I advise.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you. What a delight. Thank you.
Really appreciate your time. I joke with Mark that I think I was his best student. He doesn't agree yet, but hopefully in a couple of decades, I'll come back and ask that question again. And it was a B+, it wasn't a B. So.
I think you're right. Anyway, I'll sign off unless that causes a problem. So
stay on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Our next guest is Will Calhoun, who's been my friend for over two decades. He's a musician par excellence. He's a humanist beyond his professional acclaim. He's a 2-time Grammy Award winner. And I'm very fortunate to consider him a dear friend of mine, another person who is close to us and at AWA. He played also at our 15th anniversary party 3 years ago. And so he's been a part of our life for 2 decades. And he's an adventurist, he's a humanist, a loving, sincere human being. I'm very fond of him. I really respect the work that he does. And I will like to invite him, Will. Justin, Will is here, right? There he is.
Hello, man. I can hear you, and that's not good.
You can't hear me?
A second. Yeah, I'm not hearing. I'm sorry. That's my fault. Give me a second. Try again, please.
Okay. Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Fine. Thank you.
Fantastic. So, Will, thank you for joining us. Thank you for coming on the show. I'm really honored that you're here. And the first question I would like to ask is, please share with us your recent experiences recording in West Africa. You shared a soundtrack when we were driving to see a friend, which just blew me away. It was just so fantastic. So I'm sure the audience would love to know how culturally you're traveling from New York, going to these amazing cultures in Africa and all parts of the world, and continuing your musical, adventurous life. So over to you, Will, and thank you for coming.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to be here with these other fabulous guests as well. Well, basically being a drummer at heart and a musician, a rhythmatist, and a sound nerd at heart, part of my research, other than being in America, what we call North America, and studying jazz and rock, and I'm from the Bronx, and hip hop and funk and these kind of things, it was very important for me to take the time to research my instrument historically. What were the beats played 40,000 years ago for healthy pregnancies, for marriages, for weddings, for rain, for romantic moments, for war. And my travels took me mostly to West Africa, to Morocco, out in the desert there, in Mazuga, as well as the place I visited the most was Mali. And I did this amazing drive from Bamako, the capital, up to Timbuktu, and spent a lot of time with different families and different musicians to learn about my instrument and the rhythms. And I wanted to have this combination emotionally and sonically of modern music, what we know is blues or jazz or rock or metal, these kind of things. And also these really ancestral rhythms. And the idea for me at that time for the recording was to combine the future, the past and the present into one kind of a concept, sonic concept. And that's the music that you heard. So I was with elders, with very important people who told me very important and taught me very old things. And I had a lot of fun, ate amazing food, and decided to go into the recording studio in Mali with these elders and take my ideas and my loops and my samples and my background and put it together with theirs.
Fantastic, yeah, fantastic. That's so uplifting. I mean, I wish I could live your life and do that. Hopefully, I'll be able to join you in one of these trips. But tell me, when you're looking to explore this sonic connection, what part does an understanding of the culture play in your dialogue with the elders? You know, being aware that there is so much richness in that land. I mean, I'm just wondering. I mean, kind of as a rhetorical, I know, but I would love the audience to hear more. Yeah.
You never know enough. You have to be really humble. Different tribes are different. When I was in the outback of Australia around Aboriginal elders, you don't speak before. It's almost like being at my grandmother's house when I was a child. You don't speak around elders until it's time for you to speak. So there's the reality. You want to try to learn all the formalities. You don't want to disrespect anyone, and you want to try to be humble. Many of these elders didn't let me into these villages, honestly, Abhay, until my 4th or 5th visit. I wasn't allowed to just roll up there and go, hey, I'm from New York, I'm a musician.
You could show them your grandmother and they would let you in?
No, they wouldn't. I wanted to play with this group called the Hunters. And the Hunters in Mali don't even play with other Malian musicians, but the music is the origin of the blues. It's very, very old. And I was fascinated because the music is only built on vibrations. It's how they intimidate people because they can feel who you are and what you're doing and what your intentions are. So some people don't want them around. I wanted to be around them all the time. But it took a minute for me. So I went to this village 4 times a year for 4 years. Wow. And finally I was allowed to play with these 2 brothers. And that's the recording you heard was one of the Hunter tracks.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I just thinking about, I mean, the memory of hearing that recording gives me goosebumps because it was so incredible, because there are layers of, millenniums of culture and history into, coming from an ancient continent of Africa, but these ancient, amazing cultures that you are tying together. I mean, talking about it gives me goosebumps because it was so compelling. Yeah. So let me ask you this, right? In the age that we are in, with everything that's happening, 2020 being what it has been with, what do you feel is the best way for all of us who are, in different boats, whether it is on the pandemic or it's on the economic issues that are coming with it. And of course, all of us are concerned about BLM. My point to you is your music has a healing capacity, healing capability. How do you think person listening to it what do you recommend to them, saying that, listen, this is where it's supposed to get you? Or do you not need to say that at all? That's the question.
Well, I prefer not to say it, but what I like to try to preface the music with is trying to zero your emotions if you can. One of my amazing experiences was going to my friend's 12th century Casbah in Morocco. And his wife was decorating the place back to the original age, its original look. And I was asking her, what is the vibe when you come into a place like this? Like it blew me away even today. And she said the idea when you come through the door is for everything to be zero. Your great smells, great sounds, great looking people, great tasting food. So all your senses kind of get leveled off. So the experience becomes larger. And if something's off a little bit, or you're pissed off, or you're angry, or you have doubts about things, you're going to ruin the moment. You're going to ruin the experience. So part of the vibe with what I'm trying to create is getting the people to zero out. If you don't arrive at a zero open plane, the music can bring you to the open plane. So maybe the next track or the following track or the event, you'll have that beautiful experience of taking it in. Because I honestly believe if things can get to people when they're clear and when they're zero, you have a better possibility of reaching people and having success with your ideas and your conversation. Even if you disagree and you're zero, you can honestly disagree, and it's not terrorism. You know, it's not this horrifying defense that goes up. It's more of a, okay, well, I understand that. I don't agree with you, but okay, fair enough. You know, that's really all it is. So the concept is to either become zeroed within the music or to zero yourself out before listening to it. When I played it for you in the car, I just wanted you to hear it. I mean, we're friends, but I wanted you to hear it also for what it is. And I felt like as you were driving, it brought you to a place. You know, it took you to that place. And that's the idea. The communication is going to begin, a lot of the understanding. Yes, there's a lot of changes that have to be made and adjustments in our lives, spiritual and academic, but it's going to be difficult to reach those conversations, Abhay, if we're already in a different kind of a defense mode where we can't allow the frequency to get in. The sun can't come into your apartment or your house if all the windows and shades are closed. You know the sun's out because you can feel it, or it's coming through a crack. But to experience it, you got to open the windows, open the blinds, open the front door. The light comes in and you can go, okay, there's the sun for real, not the crack through the door. You're not getting the full experience of the sun.
Yeah, beautiful. I mean, there's a concept of the zero plane. There's a concept of shunya in Sanskrit in India, which is about that if you're trying to meditate and trying to get your brain waves to a certain, level, what you're really doing is going for the nothingness. That also carries through into the Sufi folklore about nothingness. That's Sufism being one of the cultures which embraces the darkness as nothingness.
Wow.
It's a very powerful concept because, the whole Judeo-Christian concept is about going towards the light and therefore darkness meaning nothing, right? But you start looking at, the Yorubas in Nigeria or the Igbos, and you start looking at the depth of even their perception of this shunya, the zero-ness is really compelling. Boy, Will, as always, I mean, every time I meet Will, we speak for hours and we don't even know where the time has gone because it's a banter which I'm very fortunate to share with him. So would you like to share a small piece or?
Sure. I will share a zeroing attempt piece right now. We'll try to get the vibe to people, to listeners, to enjoy and listen, and this is for them.
Fantastic.
So thank you very much. Let me know. Can you hear this all right?
We've gone beyond our half an hour, but I hope some of you can stay for another 5 or 10 minutes because we have a real treat here with Will. So thank you, Will. Over to you.
Is that coming through okay?
Yep. Well, you know, I don't have words for this. I mean, I want to. I'm getting emotional just like hearing it and kind of being transported. Thank you, my brother, for sharing this. It
It's my
was
pleasure.
really
Thank you
special.
so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, brother. Thanks, man. Thanks for everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Will. Thank you.
Forward to seeing you soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Take care.
So thank you all for coming. The next one will be on October 1st, 2 Thursdays from now. It's going to happen twice a month. The next time we are going to be speaking about our new project, which is the Soul Studio, which is an offspring of AWA, the AWA group. And we look forward to seeing you again in 2 weeks. And I want to thank our guest, Dr. Mark Ray and the incredible Will Calhoun, for being with us and sharing your wisdom and your love with us. Thank you all. Thank you all for coming.